Good evening. A political group the U.S. has long worked with closely in the fight against ISIS in Syria conducted a suicide attack in the center of Turkey's capital yesterday, with one attacker detonating his explosive vest and the other dying in a hail of gunfire while they tried to storm the headquarters of Turkey's domestic security service. The full backstory of why the U.S. supports this group is much too long for this app, but here is my attempt at a summary. The group, commonly referred to by its acronym, the PKK, was founded 45 years ago to fight for what it claims is an independent state for the Kurdish ethnicity in Turkey, and it has engaged in a bloody, decades-long guerrilla campaign, often employing terrorist tactics to achieve that goal. For years, the PKK used the border regions in Iraq and Syria as safe havens from which they launched attacks into Turkey, but in 2014, ISIS conquered large amounts of the group's territory in Syria and came very close to destroying the PKK's Syrian component, which went by a variety of front names over the years. At the same time, and for other reasons, the U.S. began bombing ISIS, and within a few short weeks, the U.S. Air Force drastically changed the fight on the ground between ISIS and its enemies. The PKK's Syrian component fought back hard against ISIS. They were the only faction in Syria willing to do so. The Obama administration tried and failed to work with several others. Over the next 3.5 years, this coalition, the PKK's arm in Syria and the U.S. Air Force, along with U.S. Special Forces acting as trainers on the ground, slowly but steadily recaptured all of Syria from ISIS. The PKK did recruit some local Syrian forces to fight alongside them, but all of their leadership, their best troops, and most of those who died in what turned out to be a very bloody fight were Kurds from Turkey and veterans of the PKK's terrorist insurgency. While all this was happening, while they were essentially acting as the U.S.'s ground force against ISIS in Syria, the PKK continued their fight against Turkey and conducted several suicide bombings and other terrorist attacks in Turkish cities, killing dozens of civilians. Turkey routinely responded by striking PKK forces in Iraq and Syria and by cracking down domestically on Kurdish opposition, whether they were connected to the PKK or not. The U.S. continues to support the PKK's effort in Syria, mostly because the group is holding tens of thousands of ISIS members, most of them women and children, in various camps in Syria. But it has been almost 5 years since ISIS surrendered, and it's unclear how long President Biden will maintain a policy which started under President Obama and continued under President Trump, especially if PKK attacks against Turkey continue. That is all for this evening. Thank you and have a good night.